Hey, happy Sunday. How you doing? How we feeling? Okay, let me get to the point. See how short I could keep this video. I shouldn't play really good music in the background if I'm gonna focus, huh? Okay. So today's topic is pretty simple. These are things, just sowing some seeds, planting seeds to open up everybody's mind to help people's healing process. One of the things I'm called to do is facilitate people's healing processes. That's it. And the only way we can do that is knowing the truth. The truth is what makes us free. So my biggest focus today is dealing with the fact that right now there is an influx, especially in the melanated community, but there's just an influx in general of people seeking counseling and trying to break cycles and heal, it seems. And it could also be just because of the nature of social media. We're seeing it more. Maybe it was always an influx, and we're just seeing more conversations come out publicly and openly about healing, and especially healing from childhood trauma. That's a wonderful thing. It's amazing. In that process, in that influx, I'm seeing so many more memes right now that basically state some variation of our parents did the best they could. In a lot of cases, that's true. I'm learning in a lot of cases that is true, but it used to really sting me because what I've eventually realized is it's not true in every parent's case. Not every parent is doing the best they can. They're just not. And this is where I bring up the topic of the difference between an emotional abuser and a psychological abuser. A lot of us had parents. I was actually this parent. I did a video on the first time I called my daughter the B word and like shaking my son and all these things I was doing because I just hadn't gotten to the root of some triggers that I felt shame, I felt remorse, and I really wanted to figure my way out of that kind of parenting and do better. There are a lot of parents like that. There are, so a lot of people have parents that, you know, they share stories of they got older and their parents seemed to learn some things, grasp some things. They may have come back and apologized for some things. They may have been able to have discussions, maybe some healing discussions of some sort, or maybe they didn't get to have those discussions, but somehow they've been able to grow through some things as parents, as emotional abusers. They're healthier now with their grandchildren. They're healthier with their adult children, all that good stuff. But emotional abusers are people who, sometimes it happens if a parent was on drugs or something, but as soon as they get off the drugs and get help, they're no longer abusive. It can be that. It can just really be a lack of knowledge and tools and resources. And as a person learns and knows better, they do better. But then there are parents who are psychological abusers. Psychological abusers intend to survive off of abusing and oppressing other people. They enjoy it. They're a bit sadistic and malignant. And there's a level of sociopathy to their behavior where they really don't intend to change it because they benefit from it. In their mind, they benefit from it. They'll wring you out to dry and then move on to the next target. A great example of this in scripture is the difference between King Nebuchadnezzar and Pharaoh. Nebuchadnezzar was a king who was oppressive. He was abusive with the 3 Hebrew boys and all the people of Israel. But over time, as he saw first of all, essentially the way that the Most High functions is either you humble yourself or you'll be humbled, one way or another. That's what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. He had to be humbled a couple of times. He lost everything, but in those moments when he lost everything, or there were 2 specific incidents when Daniel was able to interpret his dream, and also when the 3 Hebrew boys came up out of the fiery furnace and he saw that there was a 4th man in there with him. And then also in chapter 4, when he lost everything. All 3 of those incidents even though he was a bit rock-headed and he kept making mistakes and oppressing and abusing the Israelites, in all of those instances, though, he did acknowledge who the Most High was. He recognized that there was a God bigger than the false, the golden images that he wanted everybody to worship. And in chapter 4, he even acknowledged, like, the Most High is able to humble you, and that he's really in control. That's like an emotional abuser. They know when they're wrong. They'll eventually admit it. Sometimes they just have to be knocked down. Pharaoh, on the other hand, we all know this story. I think how many movies have been made about Pharaoh and not letting the people go? How many plagues did it take? And this fool still would not let go. He lied to the Most High, said he would let the people go, then didn't let the people go. Then he let the people go and went after the people after he let them go. Like, that is a psychological abuser, just willing to lie and hold on. And the reason was because he felt insecure that they would actually, he admits in like chapter 1, he was afraid that the Israelites would grow and prosper and build up an army bigger than his to overtake him. And he also admittedly benefited from using the Israelites as slaves. It's like literally that simple. Those are your psychological abusers. Those are your garden variety sociopaths and narcissists. So just take a moment, let that sink in, do what you need to do with that, because it's real. And some of our parents do not get the benefit of the doubt that you are giving other people's parents. They just don't. Some people's parents really did know what they were doing. Their whole different personalities and two-faced, leading double lives and conducting themselves one way in public and being a whole nother human being behind closed doors. And I created this video really for people who've lived through that. Now, to be clear, I am no way suggesting that either type of abuse is worse than the other. I don't believe in comparing war wounds. Abuse is abuse. It creates whatever lies it creates and deposits whatever injustice and seeds of injustice and trauma. It doesn't matter whether the person who abused you was an emotional or a psychological abuser. At the end of the day, it creates the same identity issues. It creates the same soul wounds for a person to heal from. So let's not take this video and think we're going to go around thinking, we're somehow safer. Like, if you're an emotional abuser and and the Most High is revealing that to you, using people to show you yourself, do your work. Like, heal. Do your work so that you can be a healthier parent. I did it. It's really not as painful as people make it out to be. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to face yourself, but the truth sets you free. You get free. Think of it as a butterfly in a cocoon. In the cocoon, it's not a butterfly. It's a larva. It's messy, ugly, slimy, doing a lot of pumping and bleeding and creating, like making a whole, fetus thing, whatever grossness is going on in there. But out comes a butterfly, right? The truth sets you free. So it's nothing to be afraid of if you're an emotional abuser. It's just a matter of digging into why. Where did I learn these things? How do I unlearn them? And just you get another chance. But it's really important to just understand it creates the same damage to a child, but where we need to make the reason the distinction is important is because oftentimes it's not safe for children who are products of psychological abusers. It's not safe for us to reconcile with our parents because they just continue to harm. And I think that part of the issue is maybe psychological abusers are more rare. So it is a popular message on social media that our parents didn't know what they were doing, or they did the best they could and they didn't know any better. And that's honestly between them and the Most High, because as an emotional abuser, I had plenty of opportunities and convictions and chances that obviously I took those and I saw myself and I started to do better. So, each person who's experienced abuse, that's going to be up to you to decide as part of your healing process and forgiveness. You get to decide what extent that you reconcile with a parent that's abused you. You get to decide that, and you got to pray for wisdom and discernment, because ultimately, if you keep looking at the wrong kind of parent as an emotional abuser, they will jack you up. They will jack you up, run your heart through a meat grinder if you let them. And some of us we just have to thank them for getting us here and birthing us into the world. And we just have to look to others and trust in the spirit of adoption to reparent ourselves and to encounter people who sort of mother and father us along the way. And the Most High sends those people. I'm definitely a living witness. I'm really, really blessed. I've had lots of good Samaritans and innkeepers and mother and father figures along the way who have helped just guide me, in my journey and my growth. And a lot of it was me getting in devotion time myself with the Most High and just letting him reparent me and show me, how I was really supposed to be raised and treated, so that I could give that, because I didn't have the tools. And so that actually, that's kind of that's it for me on that particular topic. Just know that it's really okay to admit it. You may not fall in with you may not be able to relate and fall in with the group, this large group of people who say that their parents did the best they could. Some of us, our parents really didn't. And that's okay. Where that becomes important is making sure you just leave space to grieve that reality. Because, to be honest, it can be a little easier to forgive and process if you think that they did the best they could. And it can also be dangerous to think that. If you go with that and then you keep giving that person chance after chance to do the best they can, they might really damage you. Just speaking from experience. You got to learn when to set those boundaries and cut ties or create a safer distance between you and a toxic parent. So that's that. The other thing I wanted to bring up is something called the brick concept for you guys to meditate on. Because in our community, we really struggle with the whole it's not that bad concept. Another really dangerous, toxic line of thinking or narrative that we have that essentially encourages people to stay in abuse until it looks a certain level of damage. And it pains me to even think about it. Like, we don't want to leave when a person is verbally abusive, unrepentantly verbally abusive, lying, or cheating. Cheating is a form of sexual abuse. We don't want to leave when they're doing things like that. Psychological abuse and the gaslighting and the games and terrible conflict resolution skills that leave you feeling like your identity's erased. People literally dismissing you and how you feel, or sabotaging you, but because they didn't put their hands on you yet, or shoot you, or put a knife or a weapon to you, it's not that bad. And I need us all to really rethink our concept of what abuse is. Because if we don't, that's why we are where we are now. Too many people are waiting for it to get worse. Bad is bad enough. We don't need to wait for that bad. We need to leave when it's just bad. So back to the brick concept, to make this point, The brick concept is like whenever, it's the difference between PTSD and CPTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder versus complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So like when a whole brick wall falls on somebody's head, we would all come running because it's a whole brick wall that fell on somebody's head, right? It's an event, a traumatic event. But when somebody throws a brick at somebody's head one at a time, slowly over time, we don't really react. You've probably heard of the metaphor of like watching a frog boil in water. They won't jump out because you raise the heat slowly, raise that temperature very slowly so that they don't realize they're cooking. The brick concept is the same way. You throw a frog into a hot skillet, that frog is going to screech and jump out. But if you just slow cook it, it won't realize it's being cooked to death. Humans are the same way, and we don't honor that. We react when a woman's boyfriend is finally chasing her on a high-speed chase to kill her. But when she's trying to tell you about the one brick being thrown at her at a time, the temperature slowly rising in the pot, she can feel herself slowly cooking. She wants to talk about it. She wants to talk it through. And our answers are, well, that's not that bad, or just pray about it. We have to stop that. We have to create safe spaces for people to really process their feelings and come out of self-doubt and just validate their experience. It's not about whether it's that bad. It's just validating that experience that, yes, you should feel that way. You should be upset that happened, or you should feel these feelings that you feel. Validating people's feelings and being a safe space for them to share unhealthy experiences. Because sometimes unhealthy after unhealthy after unhealthy after unhealthy, you hear enough bricks, eventually it's a brick wall. And we have to think about it in terms of like if you have a leak in the roof or something, or you could even think of it as the brick wall. When you start to see a little bit of mold or a leak, you want to fix it before the whole ceiling caves in, right? We need to think about abuse and trauma the same way. We've got to be more mindful of just encouraging people to heal and do their work and just not dismissive of their experiences and their feelings, and not comparative, like, well, that's not as bad as this thing that I went through. And it's like we're trying to have perspective on abuse. There's no room for perspective on abuse. It's bad, and people should distance themselves and set a hard boundary in those instances. So hopefully these things just help sow a seed, and that's really it for tonight. Hopefully it helps. And feel free to inbox me if you just want to chit chat about things or discuss stuff, and like put it in the comments. Like, I love having conversations about this stuff, but just trying to really open the door, open our minds, and open our hearts so we can be a more sensitive community for each other to heal. Love you.